A very, very well good morning to everyone here and to our lovely co-panelists. A very good morning. I want to actually thank World CSR Congress and Dr. Bhatia and team for giving me this opportunity to actually chair and talk about this amazing topic which we have about integrating CSR in SDGs and CSR strategies in SDGs. So, as you all know, 25th of September 2015 is when the Sustainable Development Goals were actually created, signed by 193 countries, all in order to ensure that we protect the planet, eliminate poverty, and to ensure prosperity for all, right? And this is something which you just cannot be done individually by governments alone. It has to have partnerships at a corporate level, with civil societies, and glad to say that India has also signed up for it and has also linked their national development agenda in line with the SDGs. And we have 17, as you all know, 17 SDGs, 169 activity targets to reach, and so on and so forth, right? Just a couple of numbers before we go ahead and talk to our panelists. India is currently ranked 121 in the SDG index and with an overall score of 60.32. Finland is at the top with overall score of 86.51. At 2015, India was 56.41. So 56.41 to 60.32, roughly around 4 points up in the last 7 years, seven and a half years. We have a long way to go, right? We have a long way to go to catch up with the top. There's also something called the spillover score, SDG score. And we are at 99.29, which ranks India at the 13th in the SDG index. What that spillover score indicates is that what you do has a direct impact on countries around you, okay? So whatever we do here, there are multiple countries around us which will have a direct impact. So I think that the topic is very relevant. In order to achieve that, how do we align business strategy to sustainable development goals vis-a-vis adopting sustainable development goals in your business strategy? So I think we kind of took the liberty to slightly modify and make the topic a little more interesting. And we have some amazing speakers on stage here. So we will go around and ask a couple of questions. And while you are answering, I would also request you to give a brief introduction about who you are and what your organization does. So let's start with Abida. So what is your take on the specific theme of the discussion, Abida? I mean, aligning business strategy to SDG vis-a-vis adopting SDG in your business strategies. Is there a difference between the two? And if so, do you see the difference? And how do you talk about it?
Thank you, Manoj. And definitely thanks to this Dr. Bhatia and team for giving this amazing opportunity to share. Yes, of course, it's a very interesting topic. And before I start I will introduce myself. I'm Abida Anis. I'm heading CSR and sustainability for Global Group India, Legrand India. So Legrand is a global leader in electrical and digital infrastructure. So coming to the topic, whether it's an aligning or adopting, whatever it is, we all must understand this is an integrating this SDG into our business. We have no other way, as you now pointed out, that in 2015, the 193 countries are given commitment that by 2030, we will be adopting, or we should be adapting at least most of the ST strategies into our business in whatever the way we are finding. So in that fashion, yes, as a Legrand, we are also one of the company who has personally given, individually given that commitment, and we have started this journey even 15 years back. So we have released recently about our new roadmap also in the CSR front. So aligning, coming back to your question, aligning business strategy is basically the companies who are finding ways to integrate the SDG into their business. without deviating their major business focal area, but however, they smartly find the ways how they can integrate or align their business, slowly integrating the SDG. So one classic example is, for example, Tata Motors. They are into motors, but in order to achieve the SDG 7, that climate action, also for their industry and innovation level, there are a couple of other SDGs also they have aligned, where they have launched their invested fund in launching hybrid and electrical motors. So that's one classic example which I could cite about. And to the second topic, adopting is basically the companies has make an intention effort that they will integrate the SDG completely into their business as they integrate into the, make it as a mission and vision as well. So no matter what business is into, the SDG will be their central focal point. So comparing to these two, the difference is the first one is less risky, the adoption is more risky, and the adoption of this actually you need an extensive communication, more commitment, because you have to clearly find the smart way. So I could, the more example I could cite about, okay, you people also there, so like company like us, Legrand, we are into electrical fields, and you know very well, 40% of GHG emissions happens through buildings. So we are directly or indirectly contributed to this ESG. So in the 2017 Paris Agreement, we as a globally, we have given a commitment to reduce our carbon emission, that by 2030, by 2050, achieving carbon neutralization. Even you remember, India's commitment is 2070. So keeping that in mind, we have 20 years, we have to keep it forward to achieve this mission. So I could proudly say that now we have achieved almost 28% reduction as per our 2020 statistics. So we have to achieve 50% by 2030. It's not easy because we have a lot of constraints and limitations that we are being in this industry. The volume is another issues we are facing, but however, right from the R&D to operations to SCM to the sales, everywhere, this is the adoption we have intentionally made. So this is the difference I could point it out, at least to all of you.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful answer, and it's very encouraging to see that you have already been there on the journey, and you have already achieved 28% of your target for 2030. So the question goes to Priyanka. So I know, as part of a large automotive sector, now is it easy to find a seat in these meetings where business strategy is actually talked about, and how do you actually influence that? If you can.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Priyanka, and I'm representing Lumax DKJN Group. We're a leader in the automotive industry, auto component manufacturing industry. And I head the communications and CSR for them. A pertinent question. Lumax as an organization has always been, we were established in 1945, listed in 1980s. We've always looked at giving back to society. However, most of the support during those times was all philanthropic. Wherever, whatever that we could do. It only got streamlined and structured with the introduction of the CSR law, and then gradually moving to alignment with the SDGs. It's very heartening to see board members asking pertinent questions, getting involved. We have a lot of interest that they show. They want to understand from the basics of need assessments to how it's making an impact. And that's my personal experience with them. However, what we struggle with mostly is alignment at the grassroots level. When we look for employee engagement in CSR and their commitment towards CSR, that is where the gap is, which we are really working towards kind of bridging, and that's how we've been operating. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think you actually bring out a very important point about how do you get that message down to the bottom, right? And I think I'll switch gears now because I'll get to Ribu Chowdhury, who's also the Director of Brand and Comms, head of CSR and D&I, right? So she's got a very, very important role to play in making sure that the message goes down to the bottom layer. Now, one of the most important goals, organization goals, is brand image. As the Director of Brands and Communications, how can you align that business strategy with what you're doing in CSR, in ESG, in the programs which you do? I would like to have your take on that.
Thank you so much, Manoj. A very pertinent question, and it's important that when we are talking brand, how do we involve our employees, right? And before I get there, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Ribu Chowdhury, and I work with Amadeus Labs. Amadeus is one of the top leaders when it comes to travel technology, and we are extremely cautious about what we do when it comes to CSR, obviously because being in the travel industry, we contribute to the entire sustainability or SDGs, right? So given that fact, it's about how do we create employee advocacy. And one classic example that I would really like to speak about when it comes to employee advocacy and managing brand is around the fact that we've collated something called a One Cause team. And this team is built by the employees themselves. And they come back to us and tell us what is it that we want to do as an organization. So it's completely led and managed by them. We just assist them with, okay, if a month, for example, is the Earth Day, right? So what is it that you want to do? So they work on activities, they work on events, and they are the brand ambassadors of figuring out what activities, should it go out on social, what are the different activities that we want to do, right? So it's completely given to them, and they're managing that. So that's something that we do. If I actually go back a little into the pandemic era, right? So what happened during that time is the employees actually came to us and said, why don't we look at contributions? And almost 500 million contribution by the employees themselves. And the organization always doubled whatever the employees did. So, I mean, there were multiple of these initiatives. We had smaller teams that were taking care of hospitalization, beds, oxygen concentrators, so things like that, which is completely run and managed by the employees. So that's how we kind of put these two together.
Wonderful, Aribu, and it's so heartening to see how employees are coming together and really making a difference when there is a need, right? And I think it's not, across the country, across almost all organizations, you could have seen that employee impact, which they have made at the ground level. Absolutely. So let me now hand over the question to Mamta, being an NPO and the only civil society member on stage here. You have to constantly pitch what you do with regards to, does it map against a specific SDG or not? How easy is it to get companies to say yes to what you're doing, and what is it which you do? We would love to hear about what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj, and thank you to all my co-panelists here. And it's a fantastic mix, and thank you for inviting me and being here. So, first of all, my name is Mamta Carroll, and I represent Smile Train. Smile Train is the world's largest non-governmental organization, or non-NPO, as you think, focused on cleft lip and palate, the birth difference. And I handle Asia. So I'm the Senior Vice President and Regional Director for Smile Train in Asia. Very relevant and very pertinent because, the corporates have said their kind of side of the story. For Smile Train, and I think every organization, whether it's an NPO or corporate, has a vision and a reason for existence. So for NGOs or NPOs, it's invariably connecting to or aligning to one or more SDGs. That's a natural, that's our line of work, that's a business. For corporates, I think SDG and also aligning their business goals along with that, so fulfilling those, and then the ethos of people, planets, and profits. And we've discussed this the entire morning today, and when I heard everybody else. So the thing for us is that how do we find, there's two organizations who would have like a natural fit, and I think for us and the corporates to share that shared values and beliefs, I think that's very, very important. Specifically coming to the healthcare space, and you would be, it's great to know that health has received, in fact, just in FY21, the largest maximum CSR contributions to the tune of 6,300 crores. So that's the scope and scale of our healthcare programs. And aligning the programs, the Smile Train programs with corporates, I think that's a natural fit because that fits into SDG 3 and SDG 10, which is health and reduced inequalities. So CLEFT, as you may know, is all not just about a birth difference that makes you look different in terms of, how a child is born, but also the far-reaching impacts of having, that difference on your face. Child can't eat, speak, or live a normal life if one is born with a cleft. So how do we kind of deal with that? And Smile Train has been doing that over 22 years now in India, and we've supported 1.5 million surgeries since we started globally on that global level. India being the largest program of Smile Train globally, and in India alone, we have supported more than 6,75,000 surgeries since we started. And it's not just about one intervention on one surgery, it's about a comprehensive cleft care treatment that, the organization supports, and 100% free. When we say 100% free, it is actually 100% free. So not just the treatment, even the pre-op checks, or even the transport or the wherewithal for a family, because, we are dealing with marginalized sections of the society. For them to come to a hospital and stay for 3 days and 4 days or whatever and get the treatment done is difficult. So Smile Train will also support that as well. So everything is supported by the organization. And as I said, that we are the world's largest with a very scalable and sustainable model. So we only work with local health facilities, local health professionals who give these treatments free of cost to poor children, because we support all of that, right from the day they come into the center and when they are discharged. So it's all about living a health and productive life. When it comes to aligning our strategies or our business goals or our community goals with the goals of the CSR partner, it's pretty easy for Smile Train as an organization. Why? Because we basically work on 4 major pillars, and that's a win-win for this partnership. One is obviously the scope of our programs. So when I say scope of our programs, we are a very, very focused organization where we say, okay, we will only do healthcare, but we will only, even in the healthcare space, we narrow ourselves down and say, okay, we will only work in clefts. So we are the expert in clefts, saying, everything that we do in clefts is going to be supported by Smile Train. And not just the surgeries, we also do heavily into training, into capacity building and all of that. Then we come to the scale of a program. So all corporates and business houses are basically looking at scaling and to see where our presence is. And we are in 30 states in the country. We are in 110 cities, and we have a fantastic spread of programs there. Then you come to impact. So it's all about impact and what exactly are we doing, right? Are you able to measure me? Are you able to see what I'm really doing? Are you able to touch and feel my program? Definitely yes, because my program is tangible. You can touch and feel. You can see that child. You can see the transformation in as quickly as an hour. So you have this child who gets into a treatment, and then you see the post-op, right? So you can actually touch and feel the program. And the last most important is accountability. Am I able to report the impact? Am I able to have those mechanisms where I can say, okay, here is what I did. This is how I spent your money. It's all about that. Smile Train uses technology to do that. So we have the world's largest database online. If you ask me a report in a matter of 10 minutes, I can tell you what I did with your money.
I can see that in your passion.
It's all
there,
about that.
Mamta,
So
because you
thank
can
so
keep
much.
going on and on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But quickly, I think if you can just also tell what would be the approximate cost of doing one surgery? If somebody was to look at that, and if you're asking for it, what would be the approximate? Is there a standard cost?
Yeah. It's about 25,000 rupees for a one intervention. And when I say intervention, is but one surgery. But remember that Smile Train is not about just one intervention, because cleft treatment, that some of you may know, is like, at regular, stages of one's life, we do all of that. So whether it's speech therapy or orthodontics, so it's basically averages it out.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mamta.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to Priyanka and kind of ask, obviously it's an organization, Lumax is an organization which started in 1945, as you rightly mentioned. One of the most pioneers, you obviously have so many suppliers and vendors who you actually deal with. How do you ensure that you are able to influence that ecosystem of people as well in order to look at SDG goals and trying to see that they are incorporating it in their vision? Is there a plan which you actually work with them as well? So Priyanka?
So, well, as an organization, we completely understand our role as a corporate citizen. And so most of our projects that we work under CSR are all aligned with the SDGs. However, when we look at our supply chain partners, to the extent of our committed SDGs, we may not clearly have been associated or kind of communicated those to them. But now that we've started our journey with the BRSR, we're a listed organization, ESG, that we will be reporting, at the end of this year. We have embarked on this journey, and therefore we're building a model where we have to include our entire supply chain for us to be creating a robust supply chain, which also follows the same core values as us. And, whether it is environment conservation, ethical sourcing of raw materials, gender diversity, any of the projects that we are advocating, they would also be committed to. I would take a small example of, how integrated the supply chain is, even though the SDGs are still in the process of being aligned with them, is during COVID times when we needed everybody to get in together to supporting people who were, falling sick, hospitals weren't able to support. Lumax created quarantine centers and partial hospitalization support for its employees, which was supported by the entire supplier base. We had a lot of our suppliers who were supporting us build this, and also connected in helping the employees, even to the extent of helping the customers wherever there was a need. So it's not like it cannot happen. It's just a matter of time when this will. And like I said, we've just embarked on this journey. It's a long road ahead. And we're building programs to see how we can integrate it. The idea is that we don't leave anyone behind. And एक भी कमजोर कड़ी नहीं होनी चाहिए in the whole supply chain. That's how I'd like to put it.
Absolutely, Priyanka. And we really hope that the pandemic and people coming together is not a blip, right? It actually continues, and you are able to bring all your ecosystem partners together in that journey. So a quick, another question to Abida. Obviously, being a global leader in switches, smart homes, and all that electrical, and I saw that in your website that you have a CSR roadmap till 2024, which outlines the following. So promoting D&I, becoming a responsible business, reducing carbon footprint, and developing a circular economy. I think these are the 4 things which I actually see on your site. So can you actually point out to some of the SDGs which would be impacted by these initiatives, and how do you plan to reach them?
Yeah, well, yes, as I mentioned, this our CSR, this ST integrated journey, we started about 15 years back. This is our fifth roadmap that is started from 2021 to 24 with the clear guidelines, which is more aligned to our 2030 and 2050 goals. So we have a strong, apart from the carbon neutralization, we also have a gender commitment that, okay, 50% of gender parity by 2030, and 1/3 of our key leaders has to be women. So towards that, we have developed so there are 4 focal areas. One is promoting diversity and inclusion. So how we are doing is, yes, we have a clear KPIs every year to all the 40 countries, not alone to India. So it's a global target. We have a commitment. We have a clear GRA reporting methodology. So under the GNA, we cover, in this particular roadmap, we have 15 priorities, and we cover almost 10 SDGs directly, right? So in this SDG, in the promoting diversity, we cover almost 3 SDGs, that is 5, 8, and 10. So one is every year we have to hire 50% of our manager hiring has to be women. This is the KPI. You know very well India, like countries where we have a big scarcity of getting the right women talents. Yes, indeed, it's a challenging, but we have committed, and this is what our KPI defined as. And secondly, we have 80% of, I don't know, you are aware of GEIS certification. This is a European Gender Equality Certification, which we have committed. 80% of our workforce has to be working GEIS label certificate, where not only gender diversity, but that respecting and empowering people with a disability and LGBTQ. So I'm so happy and proud to declare here that Legrand India recently got certification from the GEIS labeling towards that. So that means we have certified, but we need to continue our action in towards empowering, and even our CSR social actions also we build in that, because we have one of the flagship scholarship program where we have built for empowering girls. But this year, because we need to align it, today we have 20 PW ladies and 7 transgender students are enrolled in our scholarship program, and we have long way to go in that direction. And LGBTQ is definitely, we know that today more depressed community, and globally at all countries, this is one of the clear KPI given. I won't tell it is a KPI, it is our commitment, I would say, to empowering them and enlightening their lives. So secondly, this is a GIS certification, and also we have a supply diversity. You asked a question to her, maybe I would like to answer that. We have a value chain building, because it's not alone us, the ecosystem, whatever value chain. So under the D&I, we have another KPI for supplier diversity, whoever valuing that, to give them the additional business. So how the supplier diversity, it is not alone. The owner of the company is a LGBTQ, or it's a PWD, or any deprived community, for example, globally, whatever the minority community, we give weightage to them. It's not alone the cost. This is one of the D&I. So the director of HR from L&T told that, okay, there is a human rights assessment. So we do have human rights assessment. This is one of the supplier criteria where we selecting the suppliers globally. So this is the one on the CSR. And in the climate action, we have definitely reduction of carbon, not alone internal, but also external, whether it's a downstream transportation, installation of renewable. 70% of our energy has to be renewable energy by 2024. And you know very well, unlike European country, India has limitation for availing the open access and all, but still we continuing our direction to that. And all the products, we have to be PSP, that means product sustainability profiling, where 80% of our products has to be ECOS products, which were indirectly contributing. And I would happy to say that But from 2020 to 2014, we have reduced through our products alone 13 million tons of carbon dioxide across the globe through this energy efficiency products as an evolution. Okay, so the third point, just to short it of circular economy, it's 3 R's. We have fundamentally used 91%, 92% of waste recovery. Being, in all the, across the country we have achieved, and 95% of our packaging materials are used renewable material. And even in our consumption also, whether it's a plastic and metal, even though we have limitation, but we have committed to 20% of the plastic and 40% of metals has to be renewable. So these all are the some of the actions I could highlight. Responsible, I don't know, I have time, but still it's continue in education and also the health and well-being. COVID is a classic example. The healthcare we have extensively done, not alone us, all across countries, irrespective of their goals or direction or whatever strategy, everybody has supported towards healthcare, and our journey continues.
Thank you so much, Abida. I know you can go on and on about all the fantastic work which you guys are doing. So, Mamta, I'll come back to you. I know employee engagement, volunteerism is a very important business strategy, right? And engaged employees are also productive employees, as they say. So, have you tapped into trying to get employees pooling in together, contributing some funds to these surgeries which you have? And is there a plan around it? If there are organizations here in the room and you would like to kind of say how they can use that as a model, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, thank you. So I think we all feel good when we give. That's the baseline. It makes me feel good when I do something. That's the premise of individual contribution in employee giving. How do we do it? Corporates, the CSR and the HR, I think that's where the classical fit is, that when both these departments work together, when you signed up for a CSR program with an NPO, how do you get your HR strategies together and build that mountain of goodwill or that reputation for your organization by getting your employees to buy in? With Smile Train, I think that's pretty easy. One, because you can do things from not just from your hands, but from your heart and mind. You can, there are programs, there are volunteering programs that we have at Smile Train, which enables you to come and visit our centers, our hospitals, to do awareness programs, for example. This area, which is cleft lip and palate, is laden with myths and, misconceptions. People don't know about. There's a huge lack of awareness. So employees, they want to not just give money. Giving money is the easiest, as already said by people in the morning. It's just that you contribute, in addition to giving money, that you come and contribute. So whether you build awareness programs, whether you talk about in your neighborhood or your school or your building, you talk about clefts, you talk about the problem. And we can give you that. Smile Train has these various components of cleft care that we can, kind of amalgamate your HR strategies and your strategies for employee engagement into our strategies of cleft care and build those programs together. We have fantastic stories of, for example, Helion who was, GSK earlier, and how we align with, our work with their, days that they have. For example, they have the Orange Day, and how we do, World Smile Day into their Orange Day, and how we make programs so that their employees can participate as well. So I have fantastic stories about others who can, come and do this.
Thank you so much, Mamta, and I hope the audience here kind of take some of these as opportunities for you to give back. Alok has already given me the sign, but quickly, the last question to Aribu. Being one of those, and you corrected me by saying you are the leading travel companies in the world. Tourism contributes to around roughly 8% of all the world's carbon emissions, right? So what can you do? What is your organization doing around climate control and fulfilling one of those very important SDGs?
Thank you, Manoj. Yes, so before I actually start answering, anybody in this room who does not like to travel? Absolutely. So you have your answer, Manoj, why we are contributing to the environment. But that said, there are multiple activities that we are doing, just not with Amadeus as an organization, but even with our vendor partners, our customers. To begin with, the climate frisk, for example, that's a 3-hour training that's mandatorily now being given to all our employees, our engineers, our leaders. So that's something that talks about the causes, consequences of climate and the kind of changes that we want to see in the climate, right? So that's something that we are working on. Apart from that, we have certain green IT initiatives. So if I were to look at numbers, does anybody know how much, if somebody's written a mail to you and you say a thank you, what is the kind of carbon footprint that goes into a thank you mail that goes out, right? It's about 0.3 grams of carbon that's emitted. And if it has an attachment, it goes to about 17 grams. That's like a minimum attachment, right? So we all are contributing to it. So how do we as an organization work towards lowering that? So there are multiple initiatives that we've run within the organization. So that's something that we are looking at. On an yearly basis, we run a campaign called Green is the New Blue. We've been running this for about 5 years now. And each of our organizations across the globe come together for a week to talk about different initiatives around being more green, contributing to greener environment. So that's something that we do. We've taken up a large patch at the Amadeus, at the Amazon forest, and there are about close to 16,000 saplings that we plant year on year. So there are multiple of these initiatives that go into, rectifying what we are doing otherwise.
No, excellent, excellent. And, very important that people understand that every action, every transaction which they do, well, there is an element of how much and how they contribute, right?
True.
And the business community here has a responsibility to actually partner with the CSR organizations and promote SDGs and to actually create it as a catalyst for growth, right? And, well, there is a very famous Native American saying, we have not inherited the earth from our forefathers, we are actually borrowing it from our children, right? And I hope that we are able to effectively repay with interest to the future generation. And with that, hopefully before Alok really shows up with hands and legs, thank you so much for the opportunity to actually share your wisdom with the audience. I've really enjoyed chairing this panel, and so back to you. So thank you so much.
I am Swapnil Poddar from a company called ERA Water. We are into water conservation. It was a very interesting panel discussion. The implementation, not just formulating a strategy, adopting it, and implementing on ground. You kind of walked us through from all the stages. And Mr. Manoj, you mentioned a sustainability index where we are ranking 121. I'm sure the efforts that individual companies have taken, is there a unified platform where these efforts are measured in terms of some metric which contributes to this index? I would like to know that.
So can I?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I know for a fact that NASSCOM as an organization does do some bit of monitoring. And I'm saying this because we work on rainwater harvesting projects with NASSCOM. And they ensure that a lot of organizations, at least in Bangalore where I come from, there are a lot of projects around rainwater harvesting. Plus, these are done in government schools. And these are measured literally monthly, and there's a report that is sent out to all organizations that are participating. So yes, to answer your question, yes, there is. Yeah.
And Niti Aayog is our national think tank, and they have been assigned to actually measure this. So they actually go ahead and figure out what all projects has been done. In fact, they actually come out with a report on even aspirational districts. Aspirational districts, what are the different parameters which go in order to the districts, whether they have actually become better or not. So, well, there is a detailed way by which these things are measured. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.